Hey Verolden, jag heter Zack the Demon Lord. Hey world, it is I, Zack the Demon Lord, and yet again another YouTube video. I don't remember when I made the last YouTube video, and to be honest, I've been meaning to make a lot more now that I've been on winter break, but this and that, life gets busy. Sometimes you just goof around a little too much, and so the things you want to do end up going, well, under the rug. But here I am, fulfilling at least kind of what I wanted to do and doing one video topic at least. So, as for today, as the title of this video will suggest, we are going to be discussing the TH sound. This video, a lot of this information will apply to give more info to people that obviously speak English, as this video will be in English. I will, at the end though, be putting good tips for how to master this language. So if you are a foreign speaker of English, English isn't your native language, you want to get better, you could skip to the end. I don't know what the actual time mark will be, but somewhere in the end I will discuss how to get down this sound. This is under the assumption that you are already speaking English and you just want to get better though, but I will go ahead and do that. So yeah, some sorts of things we will discuss in the video. What is TH? How common is it, and where does it come from? That sort of information. So without a further ado, let's get into it. So what I first want to discuss is that ultimately all languages come from other languages. This is an example of a language family tree of which English is on. And so let's discuss this. In the beginning, well, maybe not the beginning, but according to linguists at least, English is part of a language family branch known as proto-indo-european. And so proto-indo-european was sort of just like just a very old language spoken a long time ago that split off into different groups. It split off into Indo-Iranian, Hellenic, Celtic, Italic, Balto-Slavic, and Germanic. And those eventually would break off into their own languages, and those languages would break off into other languages. In Proto-Indo-European, there was no TH sound. In fact, they only had T's and D's. But among certain languages, some languages would evolve to either have the T and D morph into the TH in both of its forms. Some languages would morph to, in some cases, have TH sounds, and in some cases have T's and D's. There's a lot of things, and some would just retain just the T and the D and did not morph at all. But in the case of what we're talking about, we're going to be talking about English. And English ultimately comes from here. It says Germanic here, but most linguists will refer to this stage as proto-Germanic. And proto-Germanic would, and they have made it kind of strange. This chart is a little off in my opinion, but Germanic would turn into North Germanic and West Germanic, and English ultimately comes from West Germanic, which further split into some different groups. One such group turns into what we now call modern English, which is what I'm speaking today, at least the American variant. But yeah, The reason why I'm discussing this is just so that way you can get some background of where English comes from. Everything basically European and stretching a little bit into Africa and Asia is related ultimately, but English kind of evolved its own way, is what I am wanting to get through discussing this. So, next up, how rare is it to have the TH sound? So, I Google searched this because I didn't have anything off the top of my mind. So, we will read this. While the English TH sound are common for English speakers, they are actually quite rare globally, appearing in only about 6 to 9% roughly of the world's languages, including Greek, Icelandic, Welsh, Modern Arabic, Standard, and some dialects of Spanish, and of course, English as well. So, and then there's a list of sounds that different languages have and how they write this sort of sound. But yeah, we will move on from there though, because I want to discuss English specifically. So, English sentences with TH. So, for the example sentences you're about to see, I use ChatGPT to generate some examples for you. But here we go. We are going to start with basically what is what people are going to be most familiar, and break it down older and older so you can see ultimately how this stuff evolved. This isn't the main purpose of, this isn't supposed to be a language evolution video so much, but kind of has become that, because that's just how languages work. They evolve, and so I want to show you how the TH came to be, and why I personally think writing as TH is not great. So modern English. The thin thief thought that this was the best path through those thick bushes. Though the weather was then cold, they gathered their strength and moved through the thorns. This thing, they believed, was worth the risk. I'll say that again slower. The thin thief thought that this was the best path through those thick bushes. Though the weather was then cold, they gathered their strength and moved through the thorns. This thing, they believed, was worth the risk. And then Middle English. So Middle English is sort of a middle stage between modern and Old English. This is when essentially English started as a Germanic language, but then we got all that Latin influence from both the Bible and from the French, and so it just really turned Old English on its head, and we started to become a lot more Latinized. I will make a statement real quick. I am by no means an old language linguist. I know how to pronounce quite a bit of this, but I am going to ultimately get some of this wrong. So if you do happen to be an old language scholar, forgive me. This is not exactly my cup of tea, but we're going to tackle it. Okay. The knicht thought this world was full of care, and the way was thin and hard to find. The Lord therefore said that they should hold their troth, though the time was then full cold, and so they passed through the dark night, trusting in God on the gold ending. I'll try that again. This time I am going to pronounce the W's as W's. That is the one area of this text I am not too sure. The knicht thought that this world was full of care, and the way was thin and hard to find. The Lord therefore said that they should hold their throat, though the time was then full cold, and so they passed through the dark night, trusting in gold on the gold ending. Hopefully I was okay with that at least. And so immediately you'll see that we are using two different letters. At least if you study hard enough, you'll see this. In modern English, we have simplified both to TH, but beforehand there were two other letters. I'm not going to go in depth now because I have this coming up later, but this is an important thing to pay attention to. But anyway, moving on to Old English, where it is purely a Germanic thing. Again, not an old linguist scholar, so might get some of this wrong. Okay, let's go. The quaid se ealde da man thet theos world bydd full erfolnesse an seveg bydd thin and hard to finden tha lerde theoden tha guman thet hie hildon tha so festnesse thea tha tida veron Chelde and tha foron thur tha theostru nit treo wigende on god an thai thare thera goldanende. I feel like I butchered that quite a lot, but I did my best. And I'm not going to attempt this one again. This one was quite difficult. But yeah, that should give you an idea. One interesting thing I noticed through giving this a read, there's a lot more th than the, which we will get into later, which I find interesting, of how those sounds are different and how certain languages operate. So ultimately, though, this comes from proto-Germanic. Now this is jumping a lot of steps forward, but at some point this would all come from this. I'm going to try this. I don't know that anyone is really good with proto-Germanic, but we will try. Than se theudo was thutho thuntho and the vegas thinas and hardas sa kuningas than sagide thought I thought and trewo haldi dedun the gunths foredun thur the darko nato. Maybe that was right, maybe that was wrong, I don't know. But you can see we have definitely from the past come and changed step by step. Now, the next up thing I want to show is English could have developed differently. Of course, this is going a slightly different branch path, but ultimately, Proto-Germanic also caused Swedish to exist. So I want to discuss Swedish. So input I did with Swedish was example Swedish text utilizing words that originally in Old Norse had eth or thorn pronunciation. And so we will go over this. So, with Swedish. Det var en dag då vädret var hårt och kallt. Han stod vid vattnet och sade att tiden går fort. Men världen står ändå kvar. Det är sant att människor tänker djupt på liv och död. So, there is no edd or thorn in sight. And so this is what I want to discuss. All cases of edd and thorn in Swedish have just simplified to D and T. So that's why I find it interesting is through proto-germanic, D's and T's transform. Of course, we still have some D and T sounds, but they some cases they transform into the th and the sound, right? And this kind of retains through a lot of old languages, but through the case of coming down to modern Swedish, those sounds have disappeared. Now, the reason for this is like with English, where we get a sort of Latin influence. Swedish had a little bit of this, but the actual deal breaker for Swedish is that they had a lot of modern German influence, I think. And so this transformed the language in a way that eth, the, and thorn, the sound, these disappeared. And so all the thorns just simplified to T's and all the eths simplified to D's, as we'll see. So I find this quite interesting. So to show you that this wasn't always the case, here is Old Swedish. I think I could pronounce this actually better than Old English. But if you are a old linguist scholar, you can call me out if I get any of this wrong. That is fine. I am no pro. But I do think I'll do a better job. So let's get into it. Det var sen dag vädret var hårt och kallt. Han stod vid vattnet och sade att tiden lider fort. Men världen står ännu kvar. Det är sant att människor tänker djupt och liv och död. And so, an interesting thing is, and this is almost where I'm going to get into traditionally where eds and thorns get used, but you'll see that there are quite a few eds and not that many thorns, like the one case with the Old English. I think it was that this had the same thing. No, they had a reverse situation. Okay, yeah, that's what it was. So this kind of shows that languages kind of preferred certain sounds more than others. But comparing this to Old Norse, which would have been at the same time as Old English, let's do that, which I also think will be easier for me to pronounce. Det var þann dag väder var harder och kallt. Han stod vid vattnet och sagde att tiden lider skjótt. En världen ständer än. Det är satt att män hugsa djupt om liv och döda. So, in this case, I would say, yeah, the eth still gets a lot more attention. A lot more attention. So, what I can see with Old Norse, that also happened with Old Swedish is that the thorn sound happens at the beginning of words. Okay? And then the eth sound happens somewhere in the middle or end of a word. And there is no real cases of switching that up much. That's just how it works. Start of sounds, you can use thorn. middle or ends of words, you can have the eth. And so that is a unique thing that also, if you look carefully, is going to apply. Roughly, it looks like with Old English. There is this the here. So Old English probably would have changed a little bit. I do know from a video I saw from Old Norse specialist Jackson Crawford, I remember seeing something about that with Old Norse at least. So Old English must have developed a little differently to allow eth in the start place. But nonetheless, it's still quite interesting to see how languages differ. But yeah, that was an example of how things could have been different. Next up, though, I want to discuss the letters. Okay. So, modernly, we use th to represent both sounds in English. Anciently, in some stages, I think of English, but also with the case of the Old Swedish, it was separate. TH was sort of a step down from thorn, and DH was a step down from eth. So, thorn is the th, and eth is the. So yeah. That's kind of how that kind of worked. But again, modernly, this is what is left. Now, you can still find thorn and eth modernly. It exists through Icelandic. But to be fair, I don't know that it survived much out of that case. Like, it's just Icelandic, really. There might be some languages that use it as well, but that is really the only real popular surviving language that uses it. But ultimately, this all comes from runes. In the beginning, we had Thurisaz, which was the rune for the th sound. Now, this is a similar issue with just using th, so I'm not a huge fan. But essentially, Thurisaz represented both of the th sounds, but then through Latinization, Thurisaz transformed into thorn, and then the eth, we just kind of reinvented the D, put a line through it to make a letter for the sound, essentially. For linguistics' sake, though, this is the Greek letter for the th sound. You will see this a lot in just any sort of linguistic sort of IPA standard pronunciation, just writing things as correctly as possible. You'll see this letter a lot. But now, I'm just going to leave this, if I can get it at a good position. I can't. Whatever. You just need to focus on this stuff anyway. We're going to be going over thorn and eth now. This is the end part I was talking about. I'm going to discuss how to pronounce it. So, you're learning English or you want to improve your English, I don't know. If you're an English speaker, the th and the should be easily, you've hit this out the ballpark by now. But if you haven't quite mastered it, I'm going to give you some training exercises of how you might get good at it. So as said, these sounds both originate from T and D. So T and D transformed and allowed for th and the. In the case of th, I want you to first think of that original t. Now, I want you now to put your mouth in that position, but try to pronounce an S. Th, th, t, 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 s, 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 th, 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 th. You probably have got gotten a little better now, because that is exactly what you're doing. You're just applying S to where the T goes. So mouth and T position, try to pronounce an S. Same logic with ev, da 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 da, but think of it kind of more Z-like. The. You'll eventually get it. It's in a very similar position, but they're quite similar. It's just T's getting kind of pronounced as S's, and D's getting pronounced kind of like Z's. That's all this really is. So, yeah. Hopefully that helps, though. I don't know how long this video ended up being, but at any rate, I hope you at least found it interesting. If nothing else. But yeah. This has been a video about the evolution of the th, eth, thorn, whatever you want to call it, sound. It is quite a fascinating history, in my opinion. But yeah, we'll leave it there. If you found it interesting, subscribe, share with friends and family that might be interested in my comment. Give it a like, do all that good jazz, and per usual, we'll see you in the next video, and until then, hey do.